Thank you for coming and accepting our invitation. Maria Carmen Pantea is a professor at the Social Work Department in Romania, BBU. Her research interests are in the area of youth studies, in particular, young people's relationship with work. She is also a member of the advisory group of the Pool of European Youth Researchers of the EU Council of Europe Youth Partnership, is author of Precarity and Vocational Education and Training, Craftsmanship and Employability in Romania, which was published by Palgrave in 2019. She has a PhD in sociology, a master with merit in gender studies at the Central European University, and a master of science in evidence-based social intervention at Oxford. So thank you again, Maria Carmen, for coming and accepting our invitation.
Thank you for having me. I will soon start my presentation. Hope that it's available online right now. Thank you for the introduction, Adrian, and thank you for inviting me to this webinar. I'm going to make a presentation on the Reinforced Youth Guarantee, which is part of the findings that will be published in a forthcoming Eurofound report in 2024. The preliminary title of the report is Becoming Adults, Life and Work for Young People in a Post-Pandemic World. I use this opportunity to promote Eurofound's work. The report will include young people's hopes and plans for the future when it comes to employment, education, housing, and family. My presentation looks into the role of Reinforced Youth Guarantee, mainly in relation to employability. The work was carried out recently on behalf of Eurofound, and I'm really grateful to Esther Schander for her kind support during this process. And the review looked into the implementation of the Reinforced Youth Guarantee based on desk research and the 17 semi-structured interviews with policy stakeholders from 10 countries, which you can see at the bottom of the slide. I will start by presenting the main context to which the Reinforced Youth Guarantee provides a response to, and I will highlight the elements of novelty that are related to it, and conclude with several findings and policy implications by large. To start with, the Reinforced Youth Guarantee has a rather long history in the European context. It has been implemented first in the Nordic countries in the 80s. Sweden was the first country, then Denmark and Norway followed. The European Commission proposed the Youth Guarantee as a measure in 2013, mainly as a response to the high youth unemployment in the context of the global economic crisis at the time. Overall, the Youth Guarantee was assessed as a powerful driver of innovation, administrative change, and it helped as many as 24 million young people getting closer to the world of work. In 2022, the Youth Guarantee was reinforced in the context of the pandemic as a crisis instrument, but still in a way likely to serve the process of recovery. It is now part of the Youth Employment Support Package, and it aims to ensure that all young people under the age of 30, as you notice on the slide, receive a good quality offer of employment, education, apprenticeship, or traineeship right after finishing leaving school or remaining unemployed in 4 months. The Reinforced Youth Guarantee is output-oriented in the sense that it is not normative. It offers a framework which is adaptable, allowing member states to devise their own strategies, their own schemes tailored to their particular situation. All countries of the European Union have committed to its implementation. However, they have different modes and levels of engagement. As of mid-2024, 23, several member states issued new action plans, and here we have Estonia, Lithuania, Spain, Portugal that designed brand new action plans. Other countries relied on the policy infrastructure established through the Youth Guarantee and incorporate the Reinforced Youth Guarantee framework within existing processes. However, several questions are open to the idea that this process needs to be evaluated, and as long as there is no action plan with clear indicators, there is still an issue related to the way such processes will be monitored. There are several elements of novelty. One is the extension of the age range from 25 to 30, and the reinforced youth guarantee is more proactive in reaching young people in long-term need situations. So this involves a group experiencing multiple disadvantages, ingrained situations of disadvantage, and sometimes require one-to-one support. In view of this, the reinforced youth guarantee has 4 phases, aiming to map, reach, prepare, and engage the longer-term needs, as the Council recommendation reads. And here is where I'm going to turn to next. I'm going to go through each of these phases and incorporate some of the findings from the fieldwork that I recently carried out. First, mapping refers to the identification of the young people at risk of entering need situations, mapping the available services and the skills that are needed. This phase depends on the structural availability of large data sets. That's why several countries are successful in this process, as they have highly digitalized public employment services and availability of large data sets, like Nordic countries, including Estonia, which is moving forward. But many others reported rather fractured links between different institutions, and these are attributed to data protection regulations, outdated registries, and also the very mobile groups of the young people that are engaged in intra-European labor mobility. So they might leave from Southern European countries to Western European countries without leaving too much information on their demographic status. They might go off the radar, of the institutional radar, once they leave school and re-enter in late 30s in situations of child protection issues, health concerns, and similar. Another finding is that the share of the young people in need situations is always dependent on the regional and not national context, because we have now countries that have the lowest and the highest share of young people in need situations in Europe. So mapping the available services and skills at regional level is very important in order to have a proper understanding of how Europe is dealing with these situations. And this is where Francesco Simoes and his team, the work on the geographies of discontent is very important in economic, but also in political terms, given the risk of extremist politics capitalizing on regions with high youth unemployment, including, of course, rural areas. We now move to the outreach, which is the second phase of the reinforced youth guarantee, and which includes raising awareness and targeted communication on the reinforced youth guarantee to vulnerable groups in ways that are adapted to their profiles. What happens is that conventionally young people in long-term need situations rely on very close and yet precarious networks of support. They don't think about institutions in the first place when they encounter a difficulty related to the labor market. So they don't search for support. That's just to visualize the group the reinforced youth guarantee wants to reach out to. So we speak about young people who did not complete basic education, for instance, or who may be lone parents, have learning difficulties, may have a criminal record or addictions, health problems, experiences of homelessness, a history of state care. So we really speak about the very hard to reach groups. So culturally competent ways of engaging these groups are key. A question is whether and to what extent the public employment services are able to reach and to engage the young people in ways that are sensitive to their values, worldviews that are obviously sometimes different than the mainstream. Possible strategies include one-stop shops or trained mediators, mobile youth work, youth ambassadors, provision of benefits for the hardest to reach, and so on. And Finland is maybe one of the situations we might think of as a country that requires municipalities to employ youth outreach workers. So this is the only country, to my knowledge, doing that. They have a very proactive approach. These outreach workers are visiting schools, they are calling parents, contacting young people, besides providing integrated support in the so-called Ohjaamos, which are, I'm sure you are familiar with. So these centers receive the exceptional institutional support, are youth-friendly, and provide integrated services, including more recently mental health services and short-term psychotherapy, which is something I will come to next. Elsewhere, there are grassroots youth work and youth ambassadors used to reach groups such as Roma, young people with disabilities, migrants. In Bulgaria, Spain, Belgium, Estonia, Latvia has a positive example related to young people in remote areas and inmates. France has a one young person and one solution plan that involves local counseling. In Romania, for instance, a country where 2 in 3 Roma young people are in need situations, and where the overwhelming majority of those not in education, employment, or training are women, the implementation of the reinforced youth guarantee is delayed given the low capacity of the public employment services to engage in reaching these groups. The next phase my presentation is looking at refers to the preparation. The preparation covers the transition from the initial registration to the actual start of the offer. So it entails matching the needs with individualized and holistic approaches, as the Council recommendation calls countries to. This may cover a range of services, counseling, guidance, mentoring, additional upskilling, and so on, in awareness at digital and green skills. And this is where individualized action plans are being signed by the counselor, the public employment service, and the young person at the other end. Interviewees reported rather optimistic results in relation to the digital skills. This was better than expected. This is how people expressed their optimism in relation to the digital skills. However, in what concerns the green skills, despite a rather overly general commitment to green transition, still there is a level of uncertainty over what green skills are actually about and what green jobs entail. So, further links with the industry might be needed, especially for making sure that the most disadvantaged young people are not losing out in the transition to the emerging green jobs. The 4-month period, which is an important element of the reinforced youth guarantee, is something that divides the opinions. Interviewees unfolded rather mixed experiences with this 4-month ambition. This seems to be a realistic timeline for the young people that are in short-term unemployment, but it's not the case. It's not realistic and feasible for the young people in long-term need situations, because sometimes young people may not need work-first approaches, but comprehensive support for addressing, for instance, mental health, family issues, addictions before entering work. Also, they may need an open door and gradually less intensive interventions that may extend up to 2 years. So several interviewees consider that decisions about longer timelines are, especially at the local level, are important in order to have more autonomy in designing interventions that work in the field. Of course, preparation requires from the public employment services superior social competencies. And here is where an example from the Dutch public employment service might be meaningful, which shows that such competencies can be learned half of the public employment service counselors from Netherlands participated voluntarily in training based on recent behavioral research, and the experience shifted the conventional way of looking at young people's unwillingness to act and the need for motivation, which is the usual modus operandi, to young people's distressed capacity to act. And this improved client attendance, and more people were applying for jobs. And the budgetary allocations, of course, are very high for the training of staff. The fourth phase of the reinforced youth guarantee refers to the offer. It's the here we come the measures within the usual active labor market policies in different configurations, from job search assistance to training programs, subsidized employment startups, and so on. In terms of job search assistance, a 2020 review of the public employment services showed that only 8 out of 28 public employment services in Europe were well prepared to face future challenges, whilst many still regarded their primary role as assisting the already registered unemployed clients in receipt of the unemployment payments, and they were not that much proactive in reaching the disengaged. In many countries, young people in need situations receive by default back to school offer. And this is a practice in Estonia, which recently extended the mandatory education to the age of 18. Sweden also has this practice for the young people for those younger than 20, who are guided towards formal education. In contrast, in Romania, there is a second chance program, which, despite being around for a long time, is still without a strong evaluation of impact and at high risk of doing more harm than good, as it mixes age groups. It is not adapted to the learning styles and social needs of the people attending, who might have different ages with gaps as long as 10 or even more years. Provision of trainings and apprenticeships has mixed results. France is reporting a success story, which I think is going to live as an example of good practice, in the sense of having a program for secure apprenticeships, which moves close to 1 million apprenticeship a year. I think they already got there. On the other hand, Germany faces a situation in which work in vocational education and training among young people is not that much attractive, because also of the reconfigurations in the training provision of companies. As a large cohort of foremen is approaching retirement, I think there is also a replacement crisis of the training staff itself, apart from the company's own reconfiguration of the provision of training. In terms of the subsidized employment, interviews suggested that although companies have an interest in recruiting young people, still reliance on the reinforced youth guarantee is not their by default option. So in most cases, public employment services place many resources in encouraging employers to use the reinforced youth guarantee, in presenting it as an attractive option, and so on. In terms of the welfare benefits, member states largely share a common trend towards conditional provisions. There is, however, a question on how to make employment financially viable for the young people, especially girls and mothers with young women with caregiving roles. Also, given the larger context in which employment is increasingly precarious, poorly paid, and there is a high rate of in-work poverty. Success in decreasing the need rate has been reported where there are family support services of quality available, such as childcare. I will now move to the last slide that presents several conclusion points. This preliminary analysis of the state of the reinforced youth guarantee shows some rather mixed picture. In general, as economies started to recover better than expected, I might say, and the need rate to decrease, the social pressure for active labor market policies was perceived as low. Yet, interviewees emphasized the relevance of the reinforced youth guarantee as a strong political signal, stressing youth-related priorities, and this is something to be cherished. The desk research and the interviews highlighted the importance of the reinforced youth guarantee as a youth-dedicated initiative, which is something important, especially given the underrepresentation of young people in the resilience and recovery facility plans, the national plans. The reinforced youth guarantee can address several elements that are underrepresented in the national plans of the recovery and resilience facility. For instance, despite the strong gender disparities in the need rate, in several countries, still the national plans indicate at best minimal measures towards young mothers and young women. And a report written by Francesco Simoes shows these limitations very well. In general, whilst the sense of delay was present, still member states are at different levels of engaging with the 2020 Council recommendation. And I tentatively propose there is a Matthew effect in the sense of having Nordic states with strong legacy of youth guarantee measures. They have a strong policy that is integrated in the national strategies, and interviews highlighted that to some extent youth guarantee measures would be part of the public employment services and the national strategies anyway. Estonia is rapidly moving towards progressive approaches likely to be exemplary in that regard. But on the other hand, we have several Southern European countries with historical high need rates and the highest subnational disparities, because we have regions with very high need rates, as long as there are also regions with low need rates in Spain, Portugal, which started the reinforced youth guarantee, yet with concerns over its capacity to deliver in the most deprived regions. Several states likely to benefit from the reinforced youth guarantee measures have low absorption rate of structural funds and lower institutional capacity. Desk research suggests also a culture of good practice that is really established in the sense of having many examples of practice being proposed as examples of good practice. However, unless there is systematic evaluation and research, good practice is situated at a lower level in the hierarchy of evidence. The reporting of practices that are unsuccessful is rather reserved. However, what does not work is also part of the knowledge base that can help in having a better understanding of how to design the reinforced youth guarantee in a better way. So interviews suggest that those involved in the implementation may need a safe platform to share their views on what works, what does not work, what they don't yet know, and so on. Importantly, the problems leading young people in need situations are not only economical, but also social. We have family issues, addictions, mental health matters, and so on, and they might not always recommend a work-first approach. Yet the youth guarantee is often seen as an economic policy, despite its strong social dimension. However, its success is dependent on family policies and other support structures of social nature. Employability indicators gain prominence, they are easier to measure, but more comprehensive social support might be needed. In Finland, for instance, the reinforced youth guarantee is conceptualized in a way that integrates rehabilitation alongside employment, education, and training, and this is something to reflect on. So it's important not to regard the reinforced youth guarantee as an economic policy alone. Then there is also this important point on the territorial perspective that needs to be factored in, and I spoke about it previously. A need to have a more participatory approach in the sense that, well, during the previous implementation, young people were matched with the services already in place. Now the question is, are these the right services that young people need? Also having in mind the idea that the reinforced youth guarantee is extending up to the age of 30, we don't really understand what are the expectations, need, views of those that are closer to the age of 30. And I'm very grateful to Luca Coltoy for pointing to the invisible millennials. So there is a lot to learn about the young people that are now part of the reinforced youth guarantee measure in a very legitimate way. A very last and dear point to me, if I may, Adriano, I think that there is something to reflect about the role of youth work in the reinforced youth guarantee as a measure. As a person that has been close to this community, I see the importance of youth work being stressed in a very lively manner. The reinforced youth guarantee speaks about mobile teams, street workers, youth mediators, and so on. So, their involvement sends a powerful message on the recognition of youth work, which is something the community has been struggling with for a couple of years. However, there are also some trade-offs for the sector itself, including mission drift, I might argue, when replacing the conventional focus on civic actions, watchdog activities with employability actions. We need to ensure that youth work is not misused as a replacement for service provision in areas that are not its main core, like employability or mental health, especially at a time when young people in Europe need engagement with youth work towards civic participation and democratic societies. And also, we might want to think of the youth work of the reinforced youth guarantee in a way that is connected with the world of work as it is, which because at the end of the day, the quality of the reinforced youth guarantee is highly dependent on the regional labor market dynamics. And as the labor market is increasingly precarious, the reinforced youth guarantee alone cannot alter the overall working conditions young people experience. And it may help young people adapt, fit, or maybe come to understand the labor market that is in many ways precarious and unfair to the young generation. Think of the housing market and its implications for the young people. Often the counseling approaches entail a motivational ethos, whilst the labor market is such that a high number of jobs are unattractive, low paid, and so on. But my conversation earlier with Francesco Simoes made me think that it is important to keep a North Star and to have as in a policy and to promote in the policy circles the discourse of decent work. This narrative is important to be kept because we need the language of decent work to bring the idea of social justice closer to the center, as the young people need not only employment protection, but also work with meaning and able to confer a sense of identity. Thank you very much, and I do apologize for extending my presentation maybe a few minutes longer than.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very interesting, and I see that there are no questions out from the audience, but I do have some questions for you, if it's possible to make. The first one, it really surprised me, the idea of reinforced youth guarantee not being so attractive for companies. Because it happens to me that in some research I have conducted in Italy, it was exactly the opposite. Like PES services were telling me, we have the issue that most of the young people who actually activate in youth guarantee and in reinforced youth guarantee, they are not coming through us. So they are not getting to know the measure through the PES, but they get to know the measure because they got involved in the recruitment of the company, and then the company asked them to go to the PES so that they can activate it, and it will cost cheaper in brackets for the company. So I was wondering how were the results you found about this being unattractive, and what were the motivations that the interviewers gave to justify this unattractiveness of the measure?
Thank you. I had an interview with an umbrella organization that is representing the interests of the industry. And I also came across anecdotal evidence on the, of course, I wouldn't overgeneralize and say that for sure, from the interviews that I collected and from the information that I have, a large share of the public employment services effort in some countries goes to persuading companies or advising companies or supporting companies in getting closer to this measure. It's of course a process, and some companies are better than others, and some have capacity to engage in this administrative processes. I might assume that those that are now confident in using the reinforced youth guarantee measures are the ones that have been previously reached by the public employment services and have already a positive experience with the measure. And they might be large companies that might have the infrastructure and the whole ecosystem able to cater to the bureaucratic process that is demanded. And here we have also this Matthew effect. To what extent young people that are closer to small-scale companies or firms in their towns and rural areas might be engaged in the reinforced youth guarantee, as long as these small-scale economic entities perceive the reinforced youth guarantee as a bureaucratic burden they don't want to be engaged with. So I think there is a lot to learn from the we tend to reify employers and to assume that they are all of the same nature, like corporates. But many small and medium enterprises, actually the largest share of employment in Europe is coming from the small and medium enterprises. My question would be for another research, which are the typical companies that are engaged in the reinforced youth guarantee measure, and how this ecosystem looks like in practice. It's a very good question. I would definitely think of. We do need to learn more who are the companies and what drives them in this process, how this process unfolded, and what worked in making the reinforced youth guarantee an option for the companies.
That was very interesting. Thank you for your answer. And it's opened up to a new, as you said, a new research field, like this bureaucratic process, and the fact that lots of research are concentrated on what do needs or young people need from the measure, need from youth guarantee, need from the pets, but what about the companies? Why do they need? No, because we are looking for young people to engage in activities, but these activities involve the companies. So actually is the second partner we have to take into account. So very interesting. Thank you for answering the question. And I have another one. I totally agree with your discourse about decent job, and I'm very happy that this policy is also taking that into account and in the narrative. My question is, have you found any difficulties from the stakeholder you have interviewed in maintaining a follow-up of the measure? So following up the young people involved in the measure after the apprenticeship or the internship ended or the training ended? And what was the issue, and what is the issue for companies to keep on working on the young person?
One of the puzzles, I think, in measuring the impact of the reinforced youth guarantee is that, as it is outcome oriented and not and leaves a space for countries to design their own measures, there is the set of indicators that, likely to measure the impact of the reinforced youth guarantee is rather limited, because different countries have different arrangements of how to get to employment outcomes. So there is rather insufficient information in the way one might expect from a policy of this scale. In terms of the evaluation, there are countries that did not evaluate the youth guarantee as it was. So they just carried out one measure after another without a proper process of making sense and of data and trying to see what are how sustainable the results are and so on. There have been for sure intentions to monitor on the long term sustainability of the results. I know that Latvia, for instance, had a 9-month follow-up for an intervention that was really reaching the inmates and following them 9 months after getting out of prison in the labor market and so on. It was trying this measure was trying to go into the long-term needs and into the highly disadvantaged groups and despite the success in measuring this, there were many logistical difficulties in this process as well. So I think that in the previous youth guarantee, the ambition was not to reach to the hardest to reach groups. Now we have a policy focus on this highly vulnerable group for which there is not yet data available. There are, to my knowledge, no systematic evaluations of the progress thus far in the reinforced youth guarantee. But there are calls to be more careful in evaluating this policy, which to learn from the previous implementation of the youth guarantee, also in terms of evaluation, and to have this unit of analysis at the regional level, which is something to be looked at, not necessarily at the national level, but to zoom into the regional dimensions that might be unequal and with high disparities within the same country.
Okay, thank you very much.
We need budgets for evaluations, by the way.
Yeah,
and,
of course.
This is also unclear in the way countries choose to relate to the reinforced youth guarantee. This was a call in the previous youth guarantee to properly incorporate indicators and monitoring and evaluation in the youth guarantee. It was not always the case, and now different countries have different ways of looking at the reinforced youth guarantee, either part of the unemployment measures, but this is something to be looked at.
Thank you very much. Yeah, definitely. If we don't have any other questions so far, I think we don't have any other questions. So I would really like to thank you for accepting our invitation and for your very rich presentation that gave us lots of inputs to think of. And as you said, new research ideas to keep on going and to conduct. So thank you very much. And thank you to all the people who were attending this webinar. Have a nice afternoon.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.